2 or so years ago I was in the UK and as is cultural obligation went to a Greggs on my first day. There, standing imposingly in front of a shelf, I saw a man commit a sin far too great for me to simply look away from. In an act of utter covetousness, the balding Brit reached out for a Greggs chicken bake, did so too with his other hand, and stunningly managed to go for a third. And so did he walk out of that store buying the last 3 chicken bakes on the shelf, depriving me of an experience essential to the British existence.
Ever had a Greggs? To which the Prime Minister replied, "How many times have I ever not had a Greggs? Unless I specifically tell you otherwise, I am made of Greggs." Last time you bought a sausage roll at Greggs, Prime Minister, how much did it cost?
I give up. I've also eaten vegan sausage rolls.
In the same vein, this patch, I feel, despite some bright additions, has been marred by a grey not dissimilar to the one upon which the man in dire need of 3 chicken bakes acted. Why would you need 3? Okay, now I'm jumping the gun. Welcome to today's review of Genshin version 5.3. But before we start, I do want to go over the methodology, as there's many aspects to a patch and many ways to evaluate them. So this video will be split into 5 sections, which will, unless I decide to change something, apply to any future version reviews as well. We'll start with the banners, move on to characters, and then talk about any new regions or overworld additions, and after that look at the new Archon or Interlude quests as well as miscellaneous quests, followed by events. Though I will note that unless required for exploration or something else, I will not talk about world quests, reason being I can't be bothered. For that matter, I might only talk about Archon quests depending on how motivated I'm feeling to slog through the gutters of writing. As for the criteria by which I'll judge these aspects, I will use an objectively correct rating system of 1 through 5 balls, comparing each aspect to the quantifiably best patch of all time, 2.6, except for when I don't feel like it, in which case the balls rating will be applied nonetheless. Spoiler, patch 2.6 will only come up one more time in this video and will thus not be used as a point of comparison for most aspects, meaning the criteria by which I'll judge will be entirely arbitrary. Of course, the 5 stars on any given banner are the most important part of them, but I'll save that discussion for in a bit. But it wouldn't be an outrageous statement if I said both Malvika and Citlali are in fact quite good. What isn't, however, are these 4 stars, as it turns out, a character whose exact role is entirely power crept by another one on the same fucking banner is as valuable or useful as a priest in Vegas, the den of sinners, evildoers, and anyone who shies away from the guidance of our Lord and Savior. Regardless, Bennett is good, we all know that, but 2 things to note here. For one, he isn't nearly as dependent on constellations as other 4 stars are, and secondly, he has been out for 4.5 years already. If you don't have his C5 or C6, have more luck. I don't know. And there's Kachina. No disrespect, I'm sure there's a bunch of people that liked her in the Archon quests, but she is utter and complete dog shit with no purpose whatsoever other than to procs in this city. An ability that, if paired with damage that might as well heal the enemy, stupid field time requirements, subpar particle generation, and no other support utility, isn't exactly something you should want to put on your team for gameplay reasons. Moving on to the weapon banners, it's not exactly looking any better. Thousand Blazing Suns is a very solid weapon for Malvika and a generally useful stat stick, but it isn't groundbreaking as either, falling in line with the average signature 5-star. Starcaller's Watch, however, doesn't fall in line with the average 5-star. In fact, it's barely any better than a fucking 3-star. Granted, TTDS is among the most broken shit in the game, but still, it's baffling just how little of an upgrade this fucking weapon is. Well, depending on how you look at it, it's a good thing really. Now, the 4 stars are all pretty strong. Favlance is arguably the most useful weapon in the game period. Fav Codex is less useful but still good. Stringless is also good. Sack Sword is good. Razor's Blade is, well, basically useless, but I guess it could be good at some point. And more importantly, there's basically no good 4-star claymore that can be on banners anyway, so it really doesn't matter. So, in summary, the character banners are dogshit awful when it comes to the 4 stars, and of course releasing 2 extremely strong 5 stars at the same time is what I alluded to with my Greggs chicken bake story, and as such, I will rate them 1 out of 5 possible balls purely because how you can go fuck themselves with this shit. This rating also wasn't improved by the fact that I needed to basically go to hard pitch opportunity just to get Mavrika, but that's beside the point. The weapon banner is, as I talked about, barely in a better spot, as well the 4 stars and Blazing Suns are very nice. Star Colors Watch slots right into the lineup of incredibly horrid Catalyst signature 5 stars, and as such I will give 2 out of 5 available balls. Okay, it is the 21st of January now, and the second phase banners will start tomorrow or so, meaning that under most circumstances I'd have to adjust my rating. And taking a first look at the character banners, it's looking like I might have to. Alucino and Chlorine are both reasonably strong carries, with Alucino being a bit better, but due to Mavrika about as valuable as Chlorine. Both can be played in Chevreau's teams to pretty great effect, and would you look at that, Chevreau's is on this banner. Her constellations are pretty useless until you get to C6, which is a pretty massive power spike for her, but not really necessary. Also, we've got Lan Yan, who might be the best 4-star to have come out ever since, well, Chevreau's. Her constellations are pretty dang strong, especially her C2, which massively increases her shield's durability, though, again, it's not really necessary. But of course I'll talk about it more in the character section. Then, last and least, Rosaria, who is fine, but just like with Leona, she is on the outer edge of irrelevance, with Citlali and also Kaeya being better. Also, that's not helped by the fact that she's been on a myriad of banners already, and her constellations don't do much past C2. Now, with all that said, you might be wondering to what extent the Balls rating is going to increase. It won't. Fuck Hoyo. Putting 2 of the best 4-star characters, one of which is entirely new and the other one has an extremely strong C6 on banners only featuring 5-star reruns is incredibly scummy. If Citlali and Chlorine had switched places, we'd be looking at a 5 out of 5 balls for character banners. But here I am, reminiscing of that fateful day the audacious Englishman emptied the inventory of chicken bakes. And so, my rating will remain the same, regardless of factuality. And again, the second phase weapon banner is far from impressive. In fact, this time it's significantly worse than the character banners. Both of the signatures don't work on any other characters, and the 4 stars are so atrocious I won't even talk about them in any further detail. 1 out of 5 balls. Also, I forgot, there's the Chronicle Wish. Don't go for it, it's fucking shit. She's doing the thing. Now, thankfully, I'm not on Twitter or any other deranged social media, but regardless, I have heard people dislike Mavrika having a bike, claiming it destroys their immersion. To that, I will respond with an earnest, good for you, happy you are or were at any point immersed in this game, and move on, as honestly, I am not and have ever, beyond my first 2 weeks with the game, been immersed in any meaningful way, and as such, Mavrika having a bike is rad as fuck. Anyways, she is, of course, incredibly strong, and while also usable as an off-field pyro applicator, would in pretty much any team increase DPS if used on-field. However, a character's strength isn't my main criteria in judging the appropriate amount of balls to be given, but rather the kit design. Big surprise, Mavrika's kit is really fucking cool. Now, her normal attacks are, as customary, entirely pointless. You only really care about her skill and burst. For her skill, basically you can press it to summon Raiden's thingy, but pyro applying pyro to enemies once every 2 seconds. If you hold it, however, Mavrika will mount her sick-ass bike, unlocking a new normal and charge attack chain which has you do donuts for charge attacks. I initially planned to meticulously explain how her burst works, also comparing her MVs to those of other characters, but I honestly cannot be asked, so instead I'll keep it short, or at least try to. Her burst is of course not charged with energy, but mostly night soul consumption. You can also get 1.5 fighting spirit for every normal attack a party member does, but that's only remotely relevant for off-field Mavrika. Her burst makes her not consume any night soul for 7 seconds and a whole bunch of other stuff I don't want to elaborate on. Basically, you press her E, do the rest of your setup, swap back and burst, and then do donuts until you run out, rinse and repeat. There are also some very dank combos you can do. Watch someone else's video for that. I'm far from being qualified to even regurgitate the information they provide for us peasants to enjoy. Moving on to Citlali, she is a melt support and as such is, by virtue of being the very first one at that, also also very strong. Essentially, she's an EM scaling shielder who also deals reasonably high damage. And to actually make her a designated melt support, she also shreds 20% pyro res. Well, I suppose she also does that for Hydro, but there's already really strong free sustain units and in freeze teams due to Citlali building loss of EM, her damage would be gimped entirely. Actually thinking about that, that doesn't really make any sense. If she is the one supplying the cryo aura, she's not melting herself. I should have thought more about that. Double thinking about it, she still gets at least a melt on her boost and skill cost, so I don't know, fuck me. Anyways, with the second phase of 5.3, we've also gotten a new 4-star Anemo Catalyst character, Lan Yan, and from that description alone, she physically cannot be bad. And indeed, she is the very first Anemo Shielder in the game, providing incredible, never-before-seen synergy with Arlecchino, for example. But as her role consolidation is really good regardless of team, she's really flexible and can serve as an offensive side grade to Zhongli in pretty much any team. Speaking of as, Lan Yan's shield is pretty average. That is until C2, where normal attackers gain the ability to restore her shield, making it, in theory, the strongest shield in the game. I think. In reality, you will probably never get it stacked high enough to be that good, but still at C2 she's got a pretty dang strong shield. Also, not to forget, her animations look really fucking cool. Thus, we've very roughly covered Mavica, Citlali's and Lan Yan's kits. Mavica is incredibly flexible and just cool as fuck, not to mention her high numbers, and Citlali, while only truly good in one team archetype, is also the only one that's really good in that one archetype. In fact, she is highly surprisingly arguably the best teammate for both Mavica and Gaming. Lastly, Lan Yan is a really solid shielder and also Anemo, meaning she is spoiled for team options. Again, as mentioned in the banner section, releasing them simultaneously is cringe as fuck and really corroborates my claim of Hoyo being a company tarnished by utter veracity, maybe not to the extent displayed by the avaricious Anglo-Saxon pilfering my Greg's chicken bake, but voracious nonetheless. However, I won't take that into account in the characters section, as it obviously already had its coverage, and so due to the aforementioned reasons pertaining to the kit design as well as very appealing visual design, not to forget the VA cast, I will benevolently grant a rare but deserved 5 out of 5 balls. And with that, it can only go downhill from here. Haha, good one! There's no new area, we are still being edged with this volcano, though there are some additions to be noted precisely to, in fact, a new open world boss, the Wayward Hermetic Spirit Speaker, and a new trance domain featuring the Lord of Eroded Primal Fire. Who the fuck made up these names, dude? I'm gonna be honest, I don't have too many insights to give, as the Spirit Speaker has no fucking HP and dies immediately, and the Lord of Primal Fire can suck my dick, I fucking hate him. Anyhow, in reading the tutorial, I can infer that the Spirit Speaker is interestingly supposed to act similarly to a boss near and dear to many of our hearts, a boss so excellent no one who's encountered them will forget. Pinwheel.
The most absorbing, deepest, hardcore gaming experiences.
Yes, she is, upon extended confrontation, meant to spawn clones of herself, only again, it wasn't until I used a carry Daya team that the fight lasted long enough for her to actually do anything. Great. As for the Lord of Fire, he is extremely fucking cringe, as without Night Soul he is basically not doable without any of your characters getting nuked. Actually, I did manage to somehow beat him with my Hu Tao once, and even then she died, so yeah, this guy can fuck off. Fun fact, the hitbox on his torso is way too fucking small, so there are situations in which most melee characters will not do a single point of damage. Also, because his attack radius is of immense girth, Charska is basically unusable as well. Cool! On another note, I will count the first encounter of the Lord of Fire during the Archon quest towards that section, not this one. Therefore, I will not waste any further time on these bosses. They are both equally as awful for different reasons. One because of a poo-poo mechanic being made redundant due to too small of a health pool, the other because of the incredibly limited selection of teams it allows. 2 out of 5 balls. slave and child labor has been abolished in most of the world for quite a while now. To circumvent the issue of not having access to unpaid underage workers, internships were invented, allowing you to luckily still force otherwise useless specimens to do your bidding. Why is this relevant? Because I am thoroughly convinced that every single Archon quest in this game was written by the same intern, running on 2 hours of sleep a week, kept in a state of chronic hypersomnia only remedied by Monster Energy and crack cocaine. Not to mention the visuals. There is no way a company valued at $23 billion as of April 2024 is incapable of hiring a handful of extra animators to prevent every single in-game cutscene from looking like complete dog shit. Characters categorically make use of pretty much only their idle animations and a few dialogue-specific ones, like this handshake kind of thing that looks, well, like them transitioning from an A pose to an animation, not like organic fucking movement. Same goes for whenever they walk. They turn around mechanically and accelerate in a way that makes sense for gameplay, but when looking at it in the context of it being supposed to be a believable walking animation, it just does not work. It looks, again, way too mechanical and stiff. In much the same way, the writing isn't and has never been realistic, tense, intentionally funny, or concise. This may seem overly harsh, which it would be if we were talking about an indie or even AAA developer, but we aren't. The Hotar rerun / Yelana release banners made approximately $46 million on iOS alone. For reference, Alex, a game that is fully voice acted and lip synced for multiple languages, made $17 million and came out in 2017.
Verpiss dich!
Dieser Ausdruck macht keinen Sinn.
Wie bitte was?
Pisse fließt. Verpiss dich bedeutet so viel wie sich verflüssigen. Das macht keinen Sinn.
Pisse tut was? Wenn sie fließt, dann meine ich meine Fresse, was weiß denn ich? Wieso unterhalten wir uns jetzt über Pisse? Du bist ein komischer Vogel, Junge. Sag schon, was willst du von mir?
Ich hab's mir überlegt. Ich hau dir doch aufs Maul.
The comparison is of course by no means perfect, but considering the immense discrepancy in monetary resources, I think it's fair to say that the absolute state of Genshin's quests in general, including Archon quests, is utterly appalling. Now, the reason for my rant was that I have of course never talked in detail about my thoughts on Genshin's quests, so I had to get that out of the way. If I am to evaluate them as objectively as possible, taking into consideration every other game I have ever played, there is not a single Archon quest, with the exception of the Chasm interlude, that would get beyond a single ball. As such, that quest will be considered the gold standard, and any quest equivalent to it in quality will receive 5 balls. Just know I still think they're kind of fucking shit. Yapping over, now I will walk through the most recently released Archon quest, starting with 5.2s, as I forgot to finish it. Dude, they couldn't even be bothered to model a fucking skull, so they just like... Also, waiting several seconds while I have to let 2 days pass only to sleep in anyways is the most idiotic shit I have ever seen. Now we're in a dream, encountering Capitano, and despite not learning much concrete, it teases things to come. Very cool. Now, if I remember correctly, at this point Natlan averted the biggest threat, but is still in danger, so we have to set out and heal the Night Kingdom. Though keep in mind, I was watching Tottenham lose to Newcastle 2-1, so I'm not entirely sure. Well, with this great sense of urgency running in our veins, in trying to ensure peace in Natlan once and for all, we hold a fucking banquet. Now, I get it's meant for characterization, an undeniably important part of any RPG, but call me crazy, that's what hangouts and character story quests are for. And even if you feel the need to have characterization in an Archon quest, I'd say there's better moments for it, like for example before the threat or the extent of it is known. All it does here is remind you that there aren't any actual stakes, and that nothing bad can really happen. Even the characters that die are still alive to some extent due to Night Kingdom shenanigans. So yeah, this is, yes, complete the sentence. Shit, yeah, you got it. I'm sorry. Okay, now after what felt like an eternity, the banquet is finally over, and Kanich mentioned that he didn't bring a whore. For the last shot we see him supposedly in a box trying to get out. Of course, it's kinda funny, but I also think it just exemplifies the issue with a lot of the animations and visuals outside of combat. Hoyo is content just getting the idea across. They don't actually care to do such things as visual comedy, they only imply it. The scene could have been so much better, but instead it looks jank and honestly outright bad. Not to mention the box is just fucking clipping through the ground. Dude, what the fuck? Hopefully, now that the filler is over, we can ramp up the pace. No, we can't. We have to spend like 10 minutes talking to Saurians in an attempt to make us empathize with them. Fun fact, assuming a single adult Saurian of any tooth variety drops 2 juvenile fangs, a slightly pessimistic but still reasonably likely assumption, I killed about 100 of them to level 90 my Chaska. Can you tell why this section is, in my humble opinion, fucking stupid and pointless? It really is like the left arm doesn't know what the right is doing. Almost like one of them consists of just a single intern. Well, anyways, we now finally get our ancient name, meaning hope. Wow, so inspirational. I genuinely think we could have gotten here 20 minutes sooner and would have not lost anything of importance pertaining to the plot. I heckin' love waiting for 2 days. That's fucking great. Now we enter the stadium, the crowd cheering me on, or at least that's what I thought until I turned around at midpoint. Turns out they were all just tripping on LSD and I edge-walked for no reason. Now, after some talking, a moment comes that when I first read the lines and heard the VA, it broke me. Once we set off, we must destroy our final enemy as soon as possible. Thanks! Otherwise, no amount of resistance to abyssal corrosion will save us from contamination. True. Thank you. But while we're still here, I believe some of your friends know what the fuck are you talking about? We don't have much time, right? True, but there's enough. I'm fucking done! After what felt like an eternity, we can finally enter the Night Kingdom to subdue the corruption within. Only after Mavuika leaves the previous scene like a fucking Boston Dynamics robot. On the way in, we get separated from Mavuika, so there's a couple of perspective changes like in HSR. Another fun observation I had here, Chaska is completely useless against these things. Thanks, Hoyo. We charge forward very slowly because the spirits guarding me apparently have broken kneecaps or just like to take their time. A common theme in this quest, so I don't blame them. Now we have to cross this insurmountable gap. If only I had a character I paid for that has the ability to overcome this gaping canyon. Well, guess fuck me because we have to use the Saurians. Yippee! Now, at this point I was pretty annoyed and feeling facetious, so I tried to die on purpose, only to find out that even if you just spam a single button or don't input anything whatsoever, you can't fucking die. What? Why the fuck is there an easy mode button? What the fuck are you talking about? And now for the grand finale, the boss my immense hatred towards which I have already expressed, only this time you get some cutscenes and a big fucking sword. And to be honest, this was kinda really cool. Look at that impact frame. Eesh. Right, this is what's most upsetting. They know how to make rad-ass cutscenes, they know how to make cinematic shit. They just don't, because I guess Mr. Hallyu wants a third yard. And so we must accept the breadcrumbs of excellence and eat turds the rest of the time. Not so fast with the praise though, because the last cutscene is... If you like Paimon enough to like this cutscene, seek help. Also, you were in there for not even 15 minutes. What the fuck? Why? Okay, now we're giving out autographs. Cool. Thanks for trying to jerk me off, Hoyo, but no thanks. I don't actually relate to this empty husk of a protagonist, so you can just go and fuck yourself. Thankfully, that's not the end though, as Malvika was after all destined to die, and of course in our PEGI 12 rated video game that can't happen. Also, there's a banner to make millions off of, so we have to go and save her. And here, this shit is actually cool as fuck. We talk to the Lord of the Night and one of the shining shades of the primordial one, Renova, the ruler of death. Jesus fucking Christ. The dialogue is impactful with no redundancies, the Lord of Death manifesting as a giant eye in the sky and tinting everything red makes the setting visually stunning, and if that wasn't cool enough, Capitano shows up, stops aging us, and reveals the things that were teased in the beginning of the quest, and all ends well, while Capitano, my goat, sacrifices himself. Now, while it may be accurate to call this the cherry on a shit cake, I do think the ending is disproportionately important to the overall sentiment regarding any piece of media really, so considering that, I do think that Act 5, Incandescent Ode of Resurrection deserves a total score of 2 out of 5 balls. This could have been an hour shorter, sorry. I initially wanted to rant more about this, but thinking about it now, the sands of time are ever running, and my time is too valuable to talk at any length about a quest that is too drawn out, poorly presented, and for the most part uninteresting and clumsy. In other words, all the criticism I had for the Archon quest applies here, only it's less visually interesting and has less cool moments. At the time of recording, I have not done the Silali quest, and I do not care to. If for some reason I do end up playing it and pay any sort of attention whatsoever, and it ends up being good, I will note that here, but yeah, I highly doubt it. 1 out of 5 more. The moment has come. It was inevitable, and yet I've been caught off guard. I have run out of words, and I don't know how to start this section. To add to my plight, I, with regret in my heart, have to tell you that as of the time of recording, the 12th of January 2025, the limited time events this patch have been absolutely abhorrent. There was the Beetle event, which, because you had to fight regular hillchills instead of other beetles, was significantly less cool and fun. You had to hit the enemy the right way to stagger them or deal big damage in general, a mechanic I completely ignored and still managed to complete everything without losing even once. Then there was the parkour event, which, if I'm not mistaken, we had in 5.0 or 5.1, and the only thing new here was that extra coins could and had to be collected. However, in a big twist, they disappeared over time, something I only noticed on my first time, which, considering I recorded this at 5 AM, is more than fair, I think. Otherwise, it was pretty much the same, accompanied by the same degree of jank and shit. Conversely and luckily, there is a new permanent game mode which gives you access to the OSIM, and only this time there is no time limit after which all custom maps are wiped off the face of the earth. It's introduced by a nice short quest that, despite my diminished hatred towards it given its complete lack of significance, still looks and sounds like complete shit. Like they couldn't even put music or singing in the I'm learning to perform song scene. Well, regardless, it's okay. As for the actual minigame, well, I suck complete dickheaded, and fittingly the gameplay is complete ass. Let's proceed to the Trails of Behemoths event, which is pretty cool and actually forces you to, at least to some extent, interact with the boss's mechanics. I honestly do not have anything else to say. And now lastly, we've got this year's Lantern Ride Springtime Charms, and at the time of writing this last section, my previous statement regarding this patch's events and their lack of quality is thankfully entirely inaccurate. I will, for better consistency, start with the mini-events, which include Immortal Combat, Drills by Lamplight, Custom Gift Envelopes, and Festive Travel Journey. Immortal Combat is basically 2-player Tetris for lobotomites. You stack the things, they disappear, your Rattan figure does damage. You also have a special ability depending on your Rattan figure, though I don't know what they do and I didn't need to. Then Drills by Lamplight is your typical amplifier multi-wave event, only in keeping with the theme of brain-eroding difficulty, or, well, lack thereof. I didn't realize you could gain massive point boosts by adhering to the team archetype demanded until I had already cleared 2 stages. As for Custom Gift Envelopes and Festive Travel Journey, I'm have no words. I don't know what to say, not because I'm angry, but because I lack any feeling, be it positive or negative, towards these two minigames. And of course, as is customary, you will by doing these minigames gather points which you will be able to redeem in exchange for a free Liye 4-star of your choice and a Xiangling skin. As for the 4-star selector, we obviously have a new addition in Lanyan, and it's talked about in the banners section. The banners fucking suck, especially so if you already have both Alicino and Corine, and as such, getting her or one of her constellations is quite a big deal. I personally went for Gaming as I desperately want his C6, which is fucking broken. The Xiangling skin is a welcome addition for several reasons. For one, it helps prevent regular brain aneurysms whenever I'm still using Xiangling in the year of our Lord 2025, as the visual difference is enough to stop my arteries from clogging. Also, the Gorba hat is fucking adorable and makes life feel like it's worth living. Speaking of living and its implied opposite, dying, we can move on to the quest. I will keep it short because my heater is broken and my hands are freezing, but basically many people, including Xingqiu's great-granddad, have started aging rapidly. Initially interpreted to be due to withdrawals stemming from the military's recent crackdown on Chenyuvel's tea smuggling cartel, it later turns out that the cause of it is of a far more ancient nature. Tao Dao, an ancient god, is causing feta to leak out into the living world. If you're interested in the specifics of deceased gods and their eventual cremation, check out my Liye lore video. It is only mostly incorrect or outdated. I then went on to talk to Baiju for a confusingly long amount of time, only to, after completing the quest, find out that I had for the past hour been doing Baiju's story quest. Anyhow, in trying to re-establish the border between the realm of the dead and that of the living, Tao takes after her father by trying and subsequently failing to perform the rite of Homer, getting blasted with feta and causing her to fucking die. Not to worry though, as the Traveler comes to her rescue. That's a bit much fan service in it. Now, I of course left out the majority of character interactions, but in spite of the incredibly shit animations, I quite enjoyed this quest to the point that I might remember it until I comically slip on a banana peel, hit my head on the corner of a shelf and lose my memory. For the first half of the quest, no one was really aware of the threat, and as such, talking to long lost characters and looking at the decor in the harbor was really nice. That sentiment probably would not have held up if I hadn't taken a break of several days between each recording, meaning that I didn't mind the pretty drawn out section of talking to characters and giving them gifts while people were rotting in the streets, as I by that point had forgotten the plot entirely. And now, considering my fingers are starting to turn blue, the events of patch 5.3 were all in all reasonably good. The Behemoth and Permanent Bard events were bangers, and I sincerely hope the former can also adopt the descriptor of the latter. That would be very cool. The Beetle and Parkour events were very much mid, but I don't really mind a couple of brain dead events as long as they aren't annoying, and these weren't, at least not to an offensive degree. And as for Lantern Rite, it's by far the best I can remember, which, as alluded to, isn't much, but regardless, the quests were all very solid, at least within the boundaries of what the stupid fucking animations permit, and the minigames, they were shit, but again, at least not very annoying. 4 out of 5 balls. The more I think about that, that doesn't make any sense, but you know what, I'll just leave it at that. And now for the total overall balls rating for patch 5.3. I could calculate the average and derive the rating from that, but math is for nerds, and also, as already mentioned, factuality is not the focal point of this video. As such, Genshin's version 5.3 will get 3 out of 5 balls. The new characters and Lantern Rite quests were really good, with the rest being either bad or outright abhorrent. Okay, now we're pretty much done. There are of course many more things I could have mentioned, like quality of life improvements, bug fixes or balance adjustments. However, I have no fucking clue whether this video will get any resemblance of views, let alone have retention high enough for anyone to even see those theoretical aspects. If you, contrary to my expectations, have made it this far, that's very cool. I really enjoy making this video, so I'll probably just get started on the 5.4 review. Like and subscribe and all of that. If you don't, next time you want to commercially acquire food, a mentally deranged Englishman will jump you, forcing you to forgo sustenance for yet another day. See you in the next one.